Hello, everyone. My name is Wanjiru Nguhe, and welcome to Mine is a Comment. I hope you are breathing. I hope you're eating. I hope you're sleeping well. I hope you're masking up, sanitizing, and I do hope that you are following up on your vaccination or that you have been fully vaccinated. Welcome to Mine is a Comment, and this is a podcast where we bring women and non-men together, where we talk about our lives, we talk about certain beliefs, practices, and decisions, and how they sit in our lives, and also how they affect us. So thank you very much for joining me. Today, we're going to talk about urban planning. We're going to talk about Nairobi and why Nairobi feels the way it feels, why urban centers feel the way they feel. And so with me today is a friend of mine I met just the other day. Her name is Annabelle Nyole. She is an urban planner, and she's very passionate about inclusive urban planning. But then I'm going to ask her to introduce herself, and then she will tell us a little bit more about what she does.
Okay, thank you so much, Anjiri, for having me here today. Like you said, my name is Annabelle. I'm an urban planner. I deal with community-based planning, and I really promote inclusive cities. So by profession, I'm an urban planner, and I'm a coordinator at the Public Space Network. And I also sit in the board for Women in Real Estate, WIRE, where we really focus on having women in the built profession empowered and having women take up more of these courses, like urban planning, architecture, etc. And in another life, I also support the Kilimani Project Foundation
Nice.
under their Plan Development Committee, just to create the community of choice that we want in Kilimani.
Yay.
Yeah, so-
Abada Sugali, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for saying yes to this conversation. And the reason we're having this conversation is that every time someone walks into Nairobi, someone will just say, mimi na nasikianga nikiumwa na kichwa. Nasikianga tu nikiumwa na kichwa. So we just want to understand. So number one, what is urban plan? Like when you talk about being an urban planner, what is urban planning? What are are there any basic principles with urban planning? Like what is it? What do we need to know about urban planning for those of us who are not urban planners and we're just curious about it?
I think urban planning, it has so many definitions.
Yeah.
If you look at it in the textbook definition, I think we learned 7 definitions in campus, and we learned so many ways to describe it. But how I describe it is basically how the city works or how systems work. So in terms of how a city is, there's so many frameworks, there's so many systems, and there's so many things that are layered together. How all those are put together for and you bring together now people,
Yes.
humans in it.
Yeah.
So how do all those things work together to serve the humans? So basically what a planner does, they're at the lead or at the forefront of all urban issues, everything urban. When you put it in a space, for example, how a city is, for a city to be there, the people who are coming to live in a city, right? They're living, they're working, they're playing. There's so much that's happening in the city. So as an urban planner, your role is to ensure that the city functions in a way that serves the people. So that brings together transport, housing. You look at water systems, you look at sewer systems, you look at the natural environment, you look at the industries. All that is encompassed into urban planning. So as an urban planner, your work is to really plan for all these things to function well in a city, for people to actually be able to live, work, and play in it in a way that works for them. And there's so many principles and functions that go to it. There's so much in inclusivity, like you had mentioned earlier. Does everybody feel included in the city? Does the city serve everybody who's in it? There's the mix of use. There's the densities that you have to consider. Mix of densities, mix of use. Also, accessibility is a huge part of it. Can I get from point A to B? And to access what I need to access in the different parts of the city? So those are just some of the basic things that come into urban planning, what urban planning is in a nutshell. And I hope I've been able to break it down in a way that someone can understand.
You have. And so I'm curious about the psychology and the reasoning behind like different cities, because every city has a different feel. Every city, like you have said, has functions. Like if it's an administrative city, there's this. If it's I don't know, like according to history, like cities developed according to their functions. So like, is there a psychology or a reasoning around how a city is, how a city should feel, how a city should make you feel and make you think and make you do, make you behave?
Definitely. For that, I would answer it in two parts. The first part is more of one. There are those, like you said, the basic principles that need to be followed, or what you've learned from the textbook, or what should be done in practice in terms
Yeah.
of how a city should work.
Yeah.
But in the second part is context. Context.
Yeah.
So it's very different how we'll plan an administrative city, or there are different reasons why a city develops. One is, as you said, administrative. It can have developed because there are headquarters there. Another could be there's an industry in that city, and that industry spurs development in the city.
Yeah.
That's one. There's so many ways that cities come up, and each city has different functions, has different way that it works. And as an urban planner, you have to consider the context, the way of life of the people, because
Okay.
it starts with the people. You're planning for the people, for how they can be able to use the space and to interact in the space, and the way it should feel. It should be easy. It should
easy.
be easy. When you experience a city, it should be easy for me to get to point A to B. I should be able to enjoy a space. I should be able to get to my house, go to work in the morning easily. I should be able to go to the playground and have a good time in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So I would really describe it as it should have ease for the user.
Yeah.
The user experience, the experience of whoever is experiencing the city or feeling it. You as Wanjiru in Nairobi should feel like, this is Nairobi, you know.
I don't. I don't. So are there well planned African cities? I might be like I might be hard on Nairobi because me personally I don't feel like, I'm just like, sometimes, you know. So are there well planned African cities?
Definitely. There are so many well planned African cities, and if I would say it depends also, like I said, the context. So there are different cities that are planned in different ways and how they function. But I'll just say some of the good examples would be Kigali in Rwanda.
Yeah.
And I know it's been even rated as one of the cleanest cities just because of some of the practices that are there and that have been had. And I think it's also and also I think Windhoek in Namibia is one of the most accessible cities that are around.
Yeah.
And also Cape Town in South Africa is one of the well planned cities. But the thing is, what works for Kigali won't work for Nairobi,
yes.
won't work for the next city. What works for Nairobi probably won't work for Mombasa.
Yeah.
You see, so you have to look at it from the point of what is Nairobi? What does Nairobi have? Who are the users of the city in Nairobi?
yes.
Who lives in Nairobi? And then that's where from there you can be able to plan the city for the people, for it to work for the people. And there's also so much that goes back into culture.
Yeah.
Like for Kigali to be the cleanest city, there's also so much about culture. What cultures have been inculcated into the people.
Yeah.
How have we been so far? Do I just pass a place and say, I'll throw the garbage there and it doesn't matter? Am I thinking of who will come to pick this garbage after this? If one thing is not right, am I okay with it? Like, am I just like, okay, there's a lot that goes with the mindset of the people who are using a city. So if you're used to a space that's a certain way, if you're used to Nairobi has traffic all the time. So once you say, I'm used to Nairobi having traffic all the time, then that's a mindset that you have. So it's something that you as the user, you don't expect it to be better, or you won't demand for better or want better because it's something that you're used to. Just the same as the sewer systems, as the water, when they're not functioning and we accept it to be that way, then we let the city to continue to be
the way it is. Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Okay. I loved when you said that Kigali cannot be Nairobi, Nairobi cannot be Mombasa. I hope the benchmarking MCAs have had people who go and benchmark. Okay, let's talk about Nairobi because we are in Nairobi, and Nairobi is our capital city. So what works for Nairobi and what does not work for Nairobi? Or like, why does Nairobi feel the way it feels? Because like personally, I feel like it doesn't want me. Like I walk into Nairobi and I'm just like, finish what you're finishing, and it's like Nairobi is telling me, finish what you're finishing and go. Yeah,
and be done in it. So exactly that. That's what I was going to ask you. What's your experience of Nairobi? How do you feel in Nairobi?
I feel like I need to be done. Like Nairobi is telling me, finish and go back to go back to Kikuyu. Just go finish and go.
Yeah. So there's that the feeling of whether the city works for you or whether like you said, like the city welcomes you. You not feel like you belong in Nairobi. There's that sense also. You don't feel like you belong in Nairobi. It's a space that you can be in, and that comes down to how it was. Or if I could go back to the historical bit of it and how Nairobi was planned. And for a long time, one of the major issues we've been having in Nairobi is in terms of the plans.
Yeah.
And for a long time, we're using the plan that was that was there in 1973.
Okay.
So between 1973, the latest plan that we've had since then is in 2015 that was done by the Japanese, the new plan.
By the Japanese?
Yeah, by the Japanese.
Not even, okay.
Yeah, so there's between 1973 and 2015, you can realize that from then there'd been no renewal of the plan. There'd been no updates made to the plan. And from then we've just let things happen the way they've been happening in Nairobi. And historically, how it was designed now is that it was based a lot on race and culture, because there were the sides of around Westlands being for the white people, and we'd have the sides like Parklands and Gara, that was for the Asian people, and then for the Eastland side was where the Africans lived, so that was like for the workers of
and you
of
can
Nairobi.
Literally tell even the greenness, all these things,
and all the provisions now you can see from then, that is what we carried on. So for example, the guideline now, even apart from the plans, is the zoning guidelines and some of the guidelines that are there for development control. So initially, maybe whatever was there for Kileleshwa was maybe a certain plot ratio that was for a single dwelling unit. And some of these plans zoning guidelines, had not been updated for a long time. And I know right now we're under the process of updating these zoning guidelines. But since then, imagine how much development has taken place in that time,
without
how the population has grown, and how I'm coming there and like, okay, I want to build a 15-story building for a place that maybe only was a single dwelling, and because the plan hasn't been updated, then there's no way of rationalizing the approval for that plan. And this is the other thing now. So we're building the high rises and all that. And what about the roads? Are we making the roads bigger for people? Because if only 10 people were accessing maybe a certain street or a certain road because there were 10 single dwelling units, right? Now there are maybe 4 or 5 flats there, and maybe the flat has 20 people at least. So you can imagine how that the numbers
the traffic
go.
will be the drainage.
The
water,
will be the water, the
yeah.
sanitation, all that. So as these approvals are being done at the county level or by the lands officers, then what are we doing also in terms of our infrastructure? Can they support this? And that's when it becomes, because when maybe it was just 10 cars using that road and I was going home and I could maybe get off the bus and walk home easily. Now we are 20 of us. And people, not 20, maybe we'll say even 50 or 100 people using that road. And we all have our cars. Even if 50 cars are on the road, we're using private cars. Already there's traffic.
Because already traffic,
You, when you're walking down, you're like, wow, what time will I get home?
Where are you even walking? Because the road is this one and then you have like 50 cars. So where are you even walking?
Exactly. So I would say in terms, that's what has been the challenge. But at the same time, I think there's a lot that's being done now to improve on these plans, to cater for the growing population. And it's a lot of conversations that need to be had, and to say that we need better plans, we need better guidelines, we need to stop saying that it's okay, approvals are just being done, things are just going on. We need to have a structure. There's need for a structure, like a method to the madness, because this will help us to control how the city is growing and how the city is developing, and also to serve the growing population. Because from even in terms of the urbanization trends, the trends have grown by large percentages. And right now would say like in terms of even in Kenya, the percentage of people who are living in the urban areas are really high compared to what was there before. We all came from our villages and we came now
urban migration.
Rural urban migration. It's actually there, and we're all now in the city, and we're there.
And even the cities like in the devolved areas,
exactly,
devolution has made it possible for urban centers to develop across the country.
And then now people are settling in those cities and in those urban areas. So we have to rethink and just look beyond what was there before and look at how you're going to serve this growing population. And the idea of planning is, yes, there are plans that are there. And I think in Kenya, something we've specialized in is making plans.
Excellent
we make plans. We have the best plans. People even benchmark our plans, and we keep them in the cabinet somewhere, and they're not implemented. What's there on the ground is I come up with this project. I'm like, I have this idea, I have this new project, because
or someone wants a tender of something. So let us create an opportunity.
Let's create an opportunity. Let's create a project. Then what happens to the plan that we created that was going to serve the people? And that's the big gap, implementation and implementation of the plans that are there.
Yeah.
And I know like some plans are long-term plans, they're
Yeah.
short-term plans, they're plans that take different times to to implement. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, if we had at least some of these plans actually being actioned or actively being used, then that's the way that we can help to control some of the development that's going on. And so it goes back also to planning and politics.
And
There's
politics.
a huge
Oh, the politics.
there's a huge role between planning and politics, where if the plans that we had were the ones that were just being followed, and that no matter who is in office,
They will
whatever
still
is
go
there,
on. Yeah.
this should go on, because development is not a 5-year thing and I go and I've done my project and I've gone and I've gotten what I wanted to get and go away.
Yeah.
There are people who will continue to live out of the conditions that you've done, out of those developments that you've created over that time.
Yeah.
Whatever you've done is impacting someone's future.
Yes. Yeah.
So, and that's some of the biggest things that we need to think about in terms of Nairobi.
Yeah. I like that you brought about the history where we're seeing like the Indians, the white people, the rich, the poor. And so I just wanted to find out how do urban cities and like the planning, how does it interfere with the way we interact with one another? Or does it affect how we interact with one another? Does it condition us to interact with one another a certain way? Like, how does that work?
Definitely, I would say urban planning does the design of the city, the way the city is designed is basically informs the interaction. So social interaction is one of the biggest perspectives of urban planning, and one of the biggest considerations. That's how we bring about the aspect of also inclusivity. How can I socially interact in the space? And it's one thing that maybe sometimes when you go to an area, to let's say to one area, maybe you're going to, I would say maybe Runda or a place like that. How do you feel when you're walking in that space? Are you feeling safe? Are you feeling like
it depends? I think it depends with where you come from. Like if you're coming from Eastlands and you're in Runda, there's a way you will feel. If you come from Runda and then you go to maybe a place like Eastlands, there's a way you will feel because of
So when you find someone, maybe when they're from Runda and they're going to Eastlands and you're grabbing your bag and you're scared, and there's
they
all
feel
that
like insecurity,
and that's because of that, the way we've broken down, and the lack of inclusivity, because I'm living in a place where everyone is a certain class or a certain level, economic class and economic level. And so that inclusivity of whatever economic level I'm in, and wherever I go in the city, that this city is for me, that I belong here. And there's a lack of that. There's a lack of that I belong in one place over the other. And that's what the interaction is. And that's what I'll bring about the aspect of public space, because I deal with public spaces. And we've been doing a lot around advocating for public spaces. And the public spaces of any area or any place are what determine how that place looks like, the value of property in that place, and how the people of the place will be
going to interact with one another.
And some of, like, let's say, like some of the projects that have been done, for example, in Dandora, there's been a lot that has been done there. They were creating the model street. So they transformed most of the streets and they made them into to have provisions for non-motorized transport. That means I can walk, I can cycle. And the way that maybe people had viewed Dandora before, because I hadn't been there for a very long time. And when I went there, my experience of that space was I could walk. I could walk there, I could interact with people there, and I could feel that I'm in a space that's safe. I'm in a space that actually
that wants you there.
That wants me there. And so it's vice versa also for the way that other areas are in all over Nairobi, and how you design for them. Are they accessible? Can I move around? Can I walk around the space? Can I get a space where I can relax? For example, in the parks. When I go to the park, am I feeling like Uhuru Park is just for those people who are going to sleep there and have nothing?
And to preach there.
And to preach. You preach there. But those they're still part of our society. And it should be that anyone from whichever social class you are can go and sit in that space and feel like they are part of the city. That's how cities should be designed, for anyone to live, work, and play. Exactly.
You keep saying live, work, and play. Now let's talk about inclusion in terms of women, in terms of children, and also people living with disability.
So I would say basically having that, like having this inclusive cities basically means that an
Yeah.
inclusive city should be a city that accommodates anyone of
Even if-
any
yes.
age. So whether
Yes.
I'm old, whether I'm young, of any disability,
Yeah.
whether I'm using a wheelchair and all that,
Not
I should be I should be able to access that.
Yeah.
Whether I'm a man, whether I'm a woman, whether I'm pregnant or whether
Even when you're pregnant, yeah.
yeah, you know, all those
Yeah.
factors is what is encompassed in inclusive cities.
Mm.
And in terms of this, I think it's a long way coming. Like it's
Okay.
a lot that is being done now
Yeah.
to try and make our cities more inclusive. And I think in one of the sessions that we had, and this is what was said, that if a city if a city is good enough for a child to live, to interact, if a child can move around the city in a way that you feel is safe, then that is a just city. So we're looking at the Just City project, I think that was done by FES, which is an organization that has been working on a just city. A city that a child can interact in safely, then that's a city that is just for everyone.
Yeah.
That's that was one of just a parameter that you could use. If you say that if a child can interact in a city in any way, then anyone else can be there. But also in terms of inclusivity, there's a lot of strides that are being taken.
Yeah.
For example, the UN has the Her City project and the Her City Toolkit,
Okay.
which is basically a toolkit for girls and women being involved in urban planning and in their processes. So this toolkit has the steps from A to Z of how can women be involved in urban planning processes. Because in some of these processes where we're going and we're saying we're involving the community, sometimes the women and the girls, they don't come out for those sessions to talk and to say, this is what I need to have in my city, this is what I need to have in my community. Some of them are not able to do that. And so through the Her City Toolbox or the Her City Toolkit, we're trying to have a way that we say all the counties, all the organizations, all the consultants who are doing any planning projects, how can you ensure that women and girls are involved?
Yes.
And that's where inclusivity can begin, because I can't tell you what a certain woman, a certain village requires. Maybe there are there's the social background, the cultural background. There are things that they need that you don't know as you're planning. So when they're involved, they can tell you, look, I usually have this challenge when I'm trying to move from here to
A
here.
to B, yeah.
So how can you include this when you're doing this plan, that it will provide for me?
Yes.
So that's some of the concepts.
Oh, I love that. I love that, because I was going to ask about reversing urban planning. Now that we have devolution and we have cities trying to come up and trying to do that and trying to, establish themselves as urban areas. If there's an opportunity, even in Nairobi, for example, if there's an opportunity to reimagine and reverse planning that now includes women, where we don't have to struggle with really high steps when you're trying to cross the road, or there's no lighting. If I'm on a wheelchair, I can't access. Is there an opportunity for that to happen in various counties?
Yes, there's an opportunity for that to happen now, especially if you go to the counties. I would say maybe there's been plans that have been done at a larger scale, maybe not and at a larger scale of the county. We're doing the county spatial plan. So that's a lot of land use and land use management, which is an important part of planning, of course. But in that, there are also the smaller plans of like the municipality or of the towns, or the smaller places within the towns.
And the sub-counties.
And the sub-counties. Now looking into that, then there's a lot of opportunity for planning. Planning is planning is it's an ongoing process. It never really ends. You can never really say that I've planned and I'm done.
Finished the conclusion of planning.
You've planned. No, it's because cities are dynamic, right?
Yeah,
what we're dealing with now is not what we're dealing with before. Like even just with the pandemic, that's a whole new ball game. So there's an opportunity for us to have more inclusive cities. There's an opportunity for us to provide more for the disabled. And I'd even commend, like right now in Nairobi, there's a lot of work that has been done. We have now walkways and pathways all over the city, which is something that we didn't have before, right? So and that's just one step to show you that these are things that can still be brought about and that can still be implemented. And I know there's a lot of work now that's being done to have the non-motorized transport network all over the CBD and areas, and I think around Upper Hill, just for accessibility of the city. So some of these concepts and some of these things can be brought in step by step. It doesn't have to be done all at once. It doesn't have to be all done immediately. But I feel it's a process. It's a step by step. And it's more about the process than the actual plan. Sometimes the process of that, okay, we've involved the people, this is what they want, and we've created this. And once you've done that and you've done a few projects about those long-term plans, but in between there are things and there are needs that come up and they can still be catered for.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of opportunity for that to still come about and for that to still be done.
I love it. I love it. And so now for the rest of us who are not urban planners, but we are interested in having like a human-centered and an equal city, what can we do to help you yet?
Wow, that's interesting. And yeah, and also, and as I was talking to you earlier, the reason I was also coming to this space is because we have so many conversations as professionals within ourselves, and we say, and I know we argue about the facts, and we say, yeah, the road should have passed here and not here, and this should be done this way and not that way. And and the public out there also need an understanding of what is urban planning? How should my city be? How should my city look? How should my city feel?
And should I even demand? Like, is it okay for me to demand for a better city? Like, am I being ridiculous to demand for a better city?
Yeah, because there's also something called the right to the city. Everyone has a right to the city. There's so much also work that is being done with a few even non-profit organizations, 9year who people are trying to come and claim their city and to make their city theirs. And I would say is the first thing would be to start with yourself, because through some of the work that we've done, like for example in the Public Space Network, what we run the Changing Faces competition that basically brings about youth, mobilizes youth groups to come and identify spaces in their neighborhoods that are neglected, and the youth themselves transform the spaces. They clean it up, they make it they add some greenery, they make it into a public space, and they're able to involve their community. And now they have a space to play and for the kids to play. And it's something that they would have sat and said, okay, the government, we need public spaces, we need a park, we need all this. It's also initiative from us as individuals being involved, being involved and saying, this is what I want, and finding out how can you be involved in this. Also, there's a lot that goes in terms of public participation. There are a lot of sessions that there's a lot of work that is done in terms of public participation. There are a lot of sessions that are held, and I think also as citizens we need to attend those sessions, take part in those sessions, because
are they at the county level or the national level?
Yes, they're actually at the county level. Yeah, there are a lot of public participation sessions that are usually held for any upcoming projects. When they usually, because it's a mandate of whoever is coming up with a project, or there's something new is coming up, public participation is a must.
Yes, it's
the community needs to be involved. The community needs to know. It has to be passed through the public before it can be implemented. So we also need to attend those sessions and to know those sessions, and also to interact more with like I know a lot of people, we go to Twitter a lot and we're going to talk about how this thing is right and not right. And those, even just that photo and just that perspective of why is this like this, once we talk about it and someone else picks it up and someone else picks it up, then it also goes a long way. So I just encourage us like to be more involved in these projects, and also not to wait for government. Like, you also have a role to play in your estate, in your neighborhood as you go on. Also, there's actually our resident associations. Do you know your resident? Yeah, the neighborhood. Do you know your
Chama Chao? It's called what was it? Kumi. Sorry,
Nyumba Kumi.
What am I saying? Nyumba Kumi.
Yeah, so be part of your residents association, and also if you have accessibility, they're able to share out what the needs of the people of wherever that neighborhood is, what are their needs, how do they want something to be. When you're involved in that, then you can actually have a say in terms of this road was this way and I had a complaint about it, and through those associations, then some of this information goes all the way up. But if we sit back and we just think, okay, this is how it is, then things won't move. So it also starts with me and you saying that we want something to be different, and actually taking the actions to make that happen.
Thank you. And thank you so much for coming. And I would ask that like more urban planners come out of like the professional circle and talk to us about what a city should be and what we should be demanding, so that we can all come together and demand for these things, either if we're demanding them from the county, from government, from companies, from wherever, so that we understand demand, so that we are not demanding things in the dark. We're not throwing things in the dark.
Definitely. I think we should start an urban planning podcast. That should
You
be fun.
should. I feel like, yes,
That
you
should be
should.
fun. That would
Yes,
be
and
fun.
educate us on what, and even the relationship between urban planning and our mental health, relationship between urban planning and the and the quality of our relationships, the qualities of our lives.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just to comment on urban planning and mental health.
Yeah.
And one of the interesting things was during the pandemic, it had been a very difficult time for people,
most people,
especially
because we're in quarantine.
We're in quarantine. You're in a lockdown. All you can do is stay in your apartment and wait for the time to go out. And we were all driving our cars to Karura. There's traffic now to get into Karura just to access the space.
Yeah.
And if we had playgrounds in each of our neighborhoods and in each of our communities, then we wouldn't have to get into our cars and go somewhere. I'd be able to take a walk in the evening, go and access a space. The children be able to have a space to play.
Yes.
And those are some of the things that are so important in terms of planning.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's also beyond planning. It goes into implementation. It goes into conserving the spaces.
Yeah.
We let's not let our playgrounds. Sometimes we don't have a say. Yes, but in terms of when you have a community playground, we need to protect it with our everything. That's the space where our children can play.
Yes, and
that's a space where you can go and just you've had a stressful day. You can just go and have a breath of fresh air, sit somewhere, go and have a picnic on the weekend when you don't have to go and pay more money to access a public space. As in, you don't have to have all this money to go somewhere and do all these things. You should be able to access and enjoy spaces that are around us. So that's really the essence of urban planning, is that your experience of the city is one that works for you, that serves you, that you can enjoy with ease. And that's what proper planning should be. And it's a challenge, I think, to us planners to come out here and talk more about it and to, because I'm a member of the Kenya Institute of Planners, and I think it's something that now we'll retaliate and go and say, look, let's talk more about it.
Educate us.
Let's educate people about it. Let's go out there and actually inform more people about it. And I think that's a huge thing, because then you'll know now what you require, what you demand, or what should be
and
there
what
for
I need
you.
to demand for. So we have launched a podcast on this Mind is a Comment podcast, on Urban Planning podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for being here. And I really appreciate, everything you've said and everything that you've been able to do with the Kilimani project, with the changing faces. It's really impressive. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
All right.
Thank
you. All right. So mine is just a comment. I just, my comment today will be a reminder that we deserve good things. We deserve good things on a personal level. We deserve good things in a neighborhood level, in a community level, in a ward level, on a constituency level, on a county level, on a national level, on an international level. We deserve good things. As Kenyans, as Africans, as African women, we deserve good things. In terms of environment, we really deserve good things and representation that represents us, all right? Even Article 43 of the Constitution says that every person has a right to clean and healthy environment. These are things we deserve. Clean and healthy environments are things we deserve. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much to everyone who has subscribed to Mine is a Comment channel. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everyone who continues to follow me on my Twitter at @Iam_Wanjiru. On Facebook, you will find me on Wanjiru Nguhe, and on Instagram, it's still Wanjiru Nguhe. Thank you so much. Continue to mask, continue to sanitize, keep social distance. And if you have not gotten your vaccine, please do get your vaccine. It's very important. Thank you and have a lovely time. And please remember, you deserve